Welcome. Hey, thank you everybody for being here today for our stream today. What do we got? 23 March. All right, I think I'm going to secure this Saturday as our working time slot. Everyone seems to jive very well with it. So Saturdays at 8, I think I'm just going to make my weekly thing for y'all. We are going to be continuing our part 3 of the series, and I am working on another series that we're going to get into for electrical. And that's just going to be a general electrical class for all vehicles. I don't think there needs to be a manufacturer specific class. That's just a waste of time. Fill up the screen. Yeah. Oh, well. So we have a couple of things that we're going to start doing here. And let me go ahead and get rid of that ticker. Let's see who we got going on. Lakes, always a pleasure to see you. Supra, haven't seen you in a while, sir. Thank you for being here. HVAC, Sergio, love you, man. Garage Monkey says, what's up? Yeah, this is some sort of video game music that I found. Yeah, more funk. I don't. I'm trying to get. I have like 6 tracks, but they didn't all sync up, so one just looped. Still got to figure that out. Yeah, part 3, sir. The other ones, they are up. They are on the archive, so you can skim through them. Do you get a certificate for this? I'll give you a pat on the back. I'll email you a gold star. You know, you can email me and I'll email you back a gold star. What's up, Sergio? So what we got here to show off? Go ahead and get my other screen. Let me pull up a screen here for you. Share screen. We're going to start doing weekly tool giveaways, guys. And weekly tool giveaways, we are going to be doing small prizes and then one grand prize at the end of the month. Now, the value of the prize is going to be dictated based upon the amount of members that we are maintaining. So, the more people that you can convince to join in for $1, then that's just going to increase the jackpot size of the tool giveaways. I want to give something back to every one of you for watching videos, for commenting, and so I'm turning your monthly membership due into tool prizes. And there are some really great things on here that I am super interested in. We got hammer sets from Trusty Cook. Got this big bad boy right here. I think I want to make this one the first monthly grand prize. 88-ounce dead blow sledgehammer. How cool is that? Split shot filled. We got an iron core handle. And Tecton is making these in conjunction with Trusty Cook, who's an American manufacturer, which is amazing. So this is a 5.5 pound dead blow. That'll hit anything off. And all their products are lifetime warranty. You just go to the support tab, you fill out a claim, they ask for a picture, and that's it. The majority of the time, they don't ask for their product back. About the only things that they do ask for back are their torque wrenches. Thank you, Mr. Fluffy. Yes, there you go. Guys, you're getting in the game. That's your chance. That's your entry. So, ooh, you just became a member there. Yeah. Oh, dude, I love gold stars and stickers, man. How to auto repair? What's going on? All right. So, I'm going to be bringing up my member screen and I'm going to start filling in the spin wheel. And I think we're going to kick off this right now for everyone who showed up. And we're going to do one giveaway. So, I just have to get my verification up here. And studio. Thank you. And members. See all members. Fantastic. Fluffy just helped everybody out get in. Nice. Good job, sir. All right. So everybody with green on their name is getting in. Let's go ahead and fill out the sign in sheet. Let's get my pinwheel up here. All right. First one going in is Sergio. Okay. Garage Monkey. Scrolling through the chat. See who's got green. Fluffy's here. Get you added to the list. Midwest, you're in. And there's our new members right there. Dang, Garage Monkey just threw out there 5 memberships. Everyone's going to get in the jackpot. We might have to do a couple of drawings today, or we'll do one big one. We'll see what happens. There we go. We got another one to add. Oh, shots are fired. Shots are fired. All right, I'm going to reset the member list on my verification screen. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. If you don't see your name on the wheel, please start saying in chat if you don't see anything. Because I can't see exactly the list of people that are in here. And I don't think people know that they got memberships donated to them. We got 12 people in here, and only a few of you are talking in chat there. Kentucky Ranger. Yeah, I got a couple of bashed ones I'm ready to take apart. Wonder if I can sneak over to the actual live stream and get a list of people in here. Damn, everyone's going to get memberships right now. All right. If you're watching, you need to be looking at the pinwheel. If you don't see your name up here, let me know so I can add it, okay? I think what we'll go ahead, we got so many gifted out memberships there today, guys. We're going to push forward with some PowerPoint by death, and we'll let those free memberships get absorbed, and then we'll update that list. All right. And yeah, we can definitely upgrade the prize right now. Let's just go straight to it. Screen share and well, guys, we got so much freebie membership going on right now. Why don't you stick around? It's 20 after 8, so we'll say 9 o'clock. What do y'all say? You want to do the 88 ounce hammer, the big dead blow there, or we can switch it up to this beast right here, 50-ounce long handled ball peen dead blow hammer. This thing is the Thor of hammers right there. 18-inch long handle, reinforced shank, split shot filled, so it's not going to bounce. These are fantastic handles. And these textured grips here, guys, they're amazing. I love that tang right there, too, so it doesn't slide out of your hand. And this is one of the other things that I really do like about this company is they give you dimensions on everything. And if something isn't made in the United States, they're going to tell you. So right there, United States. I like that with all their stuff. Yeah, we're gonna crank it up with the members. I think we're gonna just do go straight to a monthly grand prize. So that's just amazing. Thank you, Fluffy. There's a member that got picked up. Thank you, Garage Monkey Mechanics. Here we go. We just got picked up. Thank you, Canadian Diesel. Man, holy crap. Are you guys trying to one up each other? What's up, Sheer Will Survival? We're going to hit up some Subaru transmissions and we're going to let these free membership offerings get absorbed right there. They are floating around. So as long as you hang out here in the chat at 9 o'clock, we're going to update the roster. We're going to update the pinwheel that I have, and we're going to start doing some prizes. All right. And all this stuff is going to get sent to you as soon as you send me emails. So if you get your name picked, you got to be here in the chat, and I got to have green on your name, which means that you're a member. Fortunately, you can't join her now. Got bigger fish to fry. I literally have my mother-in-law. Oh man, dude, that's rough. I'm sorry to hear that, man. But there's enough free memberships floating around out there. I'm sure the algorithm will pick you up and throw one your way. Because all you got to do is the posting stuff up in the chat, and these memberships that are getting donated by other members, they will eventually get auto tagged to your name, and we'll see it. Okay, so I think it's time to press on. Let's do it while my coffee's still good and it hasn't worn off yet. Getting my butt kicked by 2 weeks of straight heavy line is killing me. All right, stop that share. New share. Let's go with the entire screen. Screen one. Fantastic. Yeah, coffee is king, but I got to make sure I don't have too much, guys. I will just drink myself sick on coffee, and that ain't good. I think we'll do it like that. Gotta I wonder if it's because I took myself off the stage. That had to have been it. Think we had some user error. I was the error. Thumbs up. All right. Yeah. So we'll call that user error. I'll take the hit for that one. My fault, everyone. All right. So from the top, here we go. What we're looking at here, this is thermal image of a generic CVT. It's probably out of a snowmobile because due to the size that we have right here. But what we're just showing you here is during the warm up cycle, you can see how hot that chain is because of the friction. That chain is clamped by those pulleys, and then the fluid is absorbing the heat and it's wisping away. So that's why it's really important to have good, clean fluid in your transmissions for these CVTs. These CVTs, they are the death. Fluid is the death of them, to be frank. And I'm going to be straightforward, and I'm probably going to get reprimanded for saying this, but it's the God's honest truth, folks. Your warranty, I'm sorry, your CVT fluid that is advertised as lifetime fluid, that's as good as your warranty goes down the road. All right. So if you buy a brand new car and it's got 5 years, 60,000 mile manufacturer warranty on it, guess what? Your lifetime fluid's good for 5 years or 60,000 miles. If you bought an extended warranty that's 10 years, 100,000 miles, well, your lifetime fluid is now 10 years, 100,000 miles. That's it. That's what it is boiled down. You want to get some good life out of these transmissions and you want to put them in the 100K, 150K, maybe 200,000 miles. And I have some Subaru customers with 200,000 miles on their vehicles, and they're doing drain and fills every 30,000 miles. They're not doing complete fluid changes when you do a drain and fill, but they're getting about 8 out of those 12 quarts changed out, and they're doing it themselves. And they're coming into my shop and they're bragging that they got 200,000 mile original CVT or factory CVTs, and they owe it all to the fluid. A couple of them did lose their valve bodies at about 120,000 miles. Not too bad, but the fact that everything else is still functioning good, that's amazing. Because that fluid, when it gets old and it breaks down, it loses its ability to lubricate all the seals, and that's when things start dying internally. So it's important to have your CVT fluid warmed up in order to measure it correctly, guys. The the procedure that we went over in the last couple of classes is when you pull that check plug out. The fill plug is also a check plug, so you fill it until it spills out. Well, you got to have your transmission warmed up to about 110 degrees. Anything 110 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Once it gets hotter than that, then you're going to be reading a false level. All right. So if your transmission fluid is 140 degrees and you pull that check plug out and you want to check the fluid, you have to keep in mind that that fluid actually increases in volume with warmth. So you got a very narrow window of making sure you got the correct fluid level in there. Also, want to point out that if you live, dang it, if you live in the colder environments where it gets cold, about freezing, these these drum pulleys right here on these chains, this is kind of a standard warm up cycle across all CVTs. That chain is designed to slip on the pulleys during a warm up sequence, so it won't clamp as hard, and it's taking advantage of that friction to rapid warm up the fluid and get it to about 100, 110 degrees. So if it's freezing outside and you feel like your car is just not having the balls that it used to, it's more than likely because you got cold transmission fluid. And then once everything gets warmed up, you're down the road. So if you're firing your car up when it's ice cold outside, it's below freezing, and you're only going 10 minutes and you got power problems, well, it's just that small little commute. And if all you do is small commutes in your vehicle and you really don't let everything warm up and drive the car for at least 30 minutes, I do encourage you to make that effort at least once a week. I have a few customers, we call them sitters. They just let their car sit in the driveway and then they only get in it when they take their kids to school in the morning, which is only a couple blocks away, or maybe they go to church on the weekend. So the car doesn't really get warmed up. It doesn't blow out all that carbon. The fluids don't get completely warmed up to where they need to. So I have one customer, I told him, I says, hey, you know what? So when you guys get out of church, maybe instead of going straight home, you go drive around the city for about 30 minutes and get on the highway and stretch this car's legs out because you're not helping it out. These cars, they're designed to be driven. They're not designed to sit. They're not collectibles. And that's how people with low mileage vehicles that are 5 or 6 years old, they complain. I don't understand why I have all these problems. Well, you have all these problems because you don't drive your car a lot. Your cars want to be driven. I know another customer, they ended up just buying a remote starter for their vehicle because they didn't want to do that. So they programmed the remote start so it runs for 20 minutes and then it shuts the car off. And they do that every morning. They just let their car sit and idle for 20 minutes. I don't think that's a good idea, but hey, they're warming up the car and they're getting all those fluids changed over through the components. So we introduced the Gen 2. We actually got this little pancake cooler here on the side. And this stack of dimes right here has transmission fluid going through it. And then we run the engine coolant through here to help with rapid warm up of the transmission fluid. After engine warm up, this also helps with maintaining the CVT temperature here too. And that's pretty cool. Stop. Wish I could turn my mouse wheel off. So sorry. If you ever change out a transmission on these Gen 2s, this sucker has to be flushed out. And there's a flush kit that they sell. It's about 20 bucks. So there's our fluid flow. Fluid comes in, fluid goes out. And then there's our trans flush kit. It's just a generic bottle. And I haven't really seen anything aftermarket that equates to it, but you can get them at any dealership counter. That hose that comes off the engine, it does have its own little teeny tiny thermostat. And that little booger is going to open up between 118 and 126 degrees Fahrenheit. And it should be fully opened at 145 degrees Fahrenheit. So this helps make sure that the coolant stays with the engine until it's all warmed up. And then when the coolant warms up, then we start running this through. If you ever do engine work on these Subaru FA FBs, then you will definitely want to put this tiny thermostat into the build list, as these things are known for having getting stuck. So I just put that into every build on my engines that has a Gen 2 transmission. If I pull an engine, you get a new thermostat for the engine and you're getting a new thermostat for this transmission warmer, because this will uh, hamper your warm up strategy. So if you have a transmission that's coming in and you're in the cold climate and you're having that power loss issue, check and make sure that this thermostat is actually opening up. And you don't have to take it out of circuit and spill coolant everywhere. Get your thermal imager on there. Okay. Thermal imagers are selling on Amazon for about 50 bucks now. They connect to your cell phones. Pretty badass. Hey, maybe we'll put that in there. If I get 100 members steady, I'll throw a thermal imager into the raffle. How about that, guys? Because, well, we're talking about things. I have some other grand prizes too. We got Top Don jump boxes. All right. And we got some snap-on neck lights. We got voltmeter kits. I got an assortment of stuff that I have been hunting down and getting from people. So I'm going to start returning that as a gift out to the members. But we got to keep the membership drive up. So that way I can keep giving you guys some stuff. I want to make sure that everyone gets something. All right, so let's go back to our strategies here. Stop touching the mouse button, Joe. All right, so now some of the other vehicles, they're going to have a front transmission fluid cooler. You'll see this on the Gen 2s behind the bumper. So this is independent of this guy. This is for warm up, and then this is for cooling. And this is running all the time. Now, not all the vehicles have this. All right. You're not going to see this on the Forester and the Imprezas, but you're definitely going to be seeing it on the Outbacks, the ones that have more weight on the vehicle. As of now, the Outback is the only one that is equipped for this trans cooler. Does that mean that you can't hook up a CVT cooler to the front? No, I would actually encourage it. I really would, because you can't really overcool this fluid, because you're going to have this stack, you're going to have this warmer here keeping everything warm with the engine coolant. So if you don't have one of these, I would definitely recommend investing in one of those. It's going to increase your fluid capacity most likely by a couple of quarts, and you'll probably lose a quart of fluid trying to install it. All right, so there are there's two types of cooling circuits here on our vehicles. We have our traditional one that we saw back here with the thermostat, and now we have joined the realm of problems that other people have, and we have thermal control valve bodies. Not a big fan of thermal valve control valve bodies, but I understand their logic and why it's necessary. Okay. These electronic uh, thermal valve bodies, the advantage to them is that they can dramatically help with engine warm up. And engine warm up strategies is extremely important for fuel economy, and it's for protecting the catalytic, because the catalytic needs to get hot fast. And the only way you're going to get it hot is by getting the engine warmed up fast. So, one of the other strategies that the engine has for warm up cycle is it retards your timing a lot, because the retarded timing increases flame front. Flame front creates hotter exhaust gases. So if you've ever wondered why your car just doesn't have any power until the coolant's warmed up, that's why. The car's purposely uh, hurting your gas mileage just so that it can get hot exhaust gases going through the catalytic and warm it up. These catalytics, the standard is to get them warmed up to about 1,000 degrees within about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes if you're in freezing conditions, but they're designed to get hot fast. And they were able to shave almost 30 seconds off on that time by introducing electronic thermal control valve bodies, because now they can cut the coolant flow off to the heater core. They can isolate it to certain parts of the engine block, and they can really get this juice cooking. The unfortunate part is they cheaped out on the manufacturing of it. And anybody who's changed out a thermal valve body knows these things are made out of cheap plastic. And the big problem that I'm seeing with the Subaru ones right now is that the motherboards on top of the thermal valve body, they're getting soaked with coolant. So obviously, the heat of the coolant is wearing down the internal gasket and it's frying the motherboard. I hope we get an updated part. But right now, um, I would say about half the vehicles that are coming in with check engine lights, they're coming in with thermal valve body codes. And if you open up the thermal valve body cover where the circuit board's at, they got coolant in them. So maybe they're going to do an extended warranty on those. Maybe they're just going to get rid of them, but I'm not too sure. Now, I do want to say that when you are working with these thermal valve bodies and you open up the coolant system in any way, shape, or form, you do have to you have to purge air out of the system. Now, we're all familiar with purging air out of the coolant system by using those fill buckets on the top, and then you just warm up the vehicle, the thermostat opens up, and then you can see the bubbles come into that bucket sitting on the radiator. Well, these thermal valve bodies, these electronic ones, they're a little bit trickier, all right, because they have about four different paths where they can lock up coolant and lock up air in the engine. So you have to go in there with a bidirectional scan tool and you have to put the vehicle in the coolant purge mode. And then that's going to orient the circuit so that every little bit of these circuits is opened up just a little bit. It has a special spot where everything's opened up. Now, w- a if you don't have a scan tool that can do bidirectional control and put that thing into service mode, which is called purge mode, you can do this in vehicle. It's a little tricky. Okay, this is like trying to put the Contra code in with the NES controller upside down. All right. I've tried to do this myself many times, and I have a success rate of about 50%. But dang, here it is. Turn ignition switch on, pump accelerator pedal twice. And when they say pump it, they literally mean smash it to the ground and completely release it. If your foot is still on there and you're applying like 5% throttle, it's not going to calculate that as an open and closed sequence. So key on, pump it twice. Then it's going to say put it in the neutral, pump it twice. Then put it in park, pump it twice. Then put it in neutral, pump it twice. And then put it back in park and pump it twice. Then your engine temp light, it's going to flash blue. And that means that you have told the computer to put the vehicle in the coolant purge mode. To get the vehicle out of coolant purge mode, because it's designed to stay in coolant purge mode even if you turn the key off. The way that you exit it is you just put the vehicle in gear. So you'll notice that our sequence, we ended here in park. So once it's in park, you see the light blink, then you can go ahead and turn the vehicle off and you can start doing your purge. Now, how are you going to do that? Well, you're probably going to want to invest in one of these airlift kits. And they can get pretty pricey nowadays as they're getting more and more popular. This is a generic one. It's got a one size fits most ball valve down here. This is just off the Jungle site. I found it for like 99 bucks. The big fancy ones that have the radiator cap adapters, so that way you don't have to use these one size fits most plugs. You can actually buy a radiator adapter kit for each specific brand. And I like those because you get a better seal. Over time, this one size fits most connection starts getting wear spots and it doesn't seal good. But these things are super cool because you hook it up to shop air and using a Vinitri device, it's actually putting a vacuum on your coolant system. And you're going to watch all your hoses collapse and it's going to put about 30 inches of mercury, like an AC machine. All right. It's going to suck out all the atmosphere. And then you'll have a fill hose. It's actually laying here in the bucket that connects up to this same device. You shut off your vacuum and then you open up your fill hose and you can charge these coolant systems up to about 95% in about 20 seconds. So if you've ever had those days where you're like, man, like this, I've been letting this car idle with that fill bucket on for 20 minutes and you're still burping it, those vacuum fillers are amazing for getting around that problem. All right, so we're going to talk about our pressure regulation now, and this is going to coincide with our cooling. Was here early versions of the oil pump in both the TR580 and the TR690 transmissions. Now we talked about the 580. That's the little guy that goes in the grocery getters like the Imprezas, the Foresters, and then the TR690. That's the big one. Okay, that goes into the vehicles with the six-cylinder engines, where it goes into the turbo models like the WRX, the new Outback XT, the Ascent. All right, so early versions of the oil pump in both the TR580 and the TR690 transmissions featured a single stage design. The output pressure of the pump is regulated by the transmission control module and a secondary pressure control solenoid. All right, but when the Ascent came out in 2019, we had to make some changes to our transmission design because the Ascent was now being advertised to actually have a tow package. They put a 2-inch receiver on this sucker with a 6-pin trailer hitch adapter. So now you can hook up electric brakes. You can hook up trailer brakes now. And they were advertising 5,000-pound tow package on a 4-cylinder engine with a CVT. I bit my lip on that one. All right. So the Ascent, we made all these upgrades with the Ascent in 2019, and we started passing these upgrades over to other vehicles as they came out in 2020, 21, and 2022. Okay, the update pump design incorporates some structural changes to the gear. The two stage, now with the two-stage oil pump, is controlled by two solenoids. So we got some other things going on in here in the circuit. So we have our lubrication solenoid here, which keeps anything that's not getting line pressure to it is now going to be getting just some low pressure fluid going through it to keep everything lubricated. And then we have our big line pressure solenoid over here. All right, so our line pressure now is going to be able to escalate faster with the new demands so it can get clamping force better. That's the whole idea of this. So when you go wide open throttle, you should hit peak pressure. So that way that chain can get clamped up and you can go. And as you start cruising down, you get lower line pressures. You can be looking at your line pressure with your laptop, so you don't have to have an analog gauge hooked up to the transmission housing. All this can be read through the TCM. Just be aware that you are looking at processed information when you're doing it with a scan tool. And if you're unfamiliar with the term processed information, basically, what that means is you have a pressure sensor that's on the transmission, then it sends out its signal to the TCM. The TCM then interprets those electrical voltages and interprets it into a pressure readout. So, if you have any kind of contamination on the electrical harness, you could get a false reading. Or if you have some green crusties on those pins and those contacts, again, you could add resistance and you could get some false readings. So the operating pressure inside this transmission now can operate between 100 psi and 700 psi. That means if you're going to be hooking up some gauges and you want to see the actual mechanical pressure of this with a mechanical gauge, you're going to need a gauge that has at least 1,000 psi scale on it. And I would recommend getting a mechanical gauge that actually has megapascals on it, as that's what all the service information reads out in. So they like using nice rounded numbers of megapascal. And when you try and do the conversions, you're going to get all these funky PSI numbers. I ended up just investing in the Snap on digital pressure gauge kit. It runs about $400, and it was pretty nice because it does go up to 1,000 psi, and it is Bluetooth to your Androids and your iPhones. So you can just wrap up that gauge underneath the vehicle, and then you can just go for a parking lot drive, and you don't have to worry about this 6 foot long hose dragging under your vehicle that could potentially get ripped off the transmission. Instead, you have this little box about this big, and you can zip tie it underneath the vehicle somewhere. Electronic oil pump was eventually incorporated when we got into the stop start technology. This was to help keep the circuits lubricated while the vehicle, while the auto start stop, when the auto, when the start stop system kicked in. So the vehicle is programmed to command off. Well, the engine's not turning over, which means it's not turning the torque converter, and the torque converter is synced up to the transmission oil pump. So there's no way we can get fluid in there. And if you want to be able to have this vehicle take back off as soon as you get engine start again, you need to be able to maintain your line pressure. So that was the purpose of this little guy in the back, is to keep those circuits charged up so that way when the vehicle turned on, you still have some pressure in the lines and everything is charged up and you do not skip a beat when you go to take off. And so far this has been working really good. I have not had one problem with it. I've had no codes for it. I've never had to service it. You just have to know that it's there. So, in summary, the main purpose of the electronic oil pump is to keep hydraulic pressure to the forward and reverse circuits. And that's for your forward reverse clutch because the vehicle is in drive, or maybe it's reverse, but auto start does not work in reverse. So, blah. All right, things to take into account now. And I have a simplified block diagram here. And what I want to point out to you is just how things are talking to each other. I'm going to see if I can't get a little crayon up here. So, first off, is let's look at this box right here. This is the transmission control module. And again, this is a simplified diagram. Notice that the inhibitor switch right here, that's hard line to it. Your stoplight switch is hard line to it. Your starter switch, electric oil pump, and then you have two-way communication with your electric oil pump relay. All those talk directly to the transmission control module, nothing else. The rest of the features of the vehicle that need to communicate in tandem with the transmission control module is part of the auto start stop feature. That's all done through your network. That goes through CAN bus. So if you are having problems with this electric oil pump and you're troubleshooting the circuit, I need you to keep in mind that this circuit for the electric oil pump is very, very, very simple. It has a command signal to turn the pump on and off, but as far as knowing if the vehicle needs to go into start stop condition, all that is CAN bus driven. So get an oscilloscope and check your network and make sure that your network doesn't have any funky packets on it. But this is not going to be a network class. I just want you to be aware of that and not be chucking transmission control modules at this thing, because that is what I could see potentially happening if somebody's having some start stop issues or they're having some oil pump control issues, is they're going to start chucking computers at this thing. Now, if you want to check your oil pump circuit and see if it's actually intact and it's working correctly, bidirectional scan tool support. It does have a function where you can turn the pump on and off. By turning it on and off, you know that the TCM can communicate with that circuit. And if it turns on and off, then you know all your wires and your plugs are good. So you should move on with your diagnostics from there. And that's the great part about owning these bidirectional scan tools is they allow you to force on a condition in the vehicle. And if that condition happens, then you can safely say, all right, well, all those wires and grounds are good because that function just happened. Now I need to find out why it's not happening when I'm driving the vehicle. So maybe I need to look at a network problem because I have another confuser over here that may not be getting its signal out. Okay. And this is just another block diagram just showing the rest of the sensor inputs. So just sounding it off really quick. All your transmission pressure sensors, your speed sensors, all that talks to the TCM. All right. It has a straight hard shot link to the transmission control module. Then these other blocks over here, the TCM actually makes these do their job. And as you'll notice, all these right here, that's the control valve body. So the TCM receives all this information right here. Their inputs only to the TCM. And then we have output signals here to our control valve body. Everything right here in the center is software and it operates over CAN bus. And we talked about X mode last week. X mode is a X mode is not mechanical. It doesn't do anything mechanically for your vehicle. It just changes the software on how your vehicle works. And it just gives you like a hill climb mode and it gives you a hill descent mode where you can control how it can control keeping your vehicle in a straight line. We went over the conditions of when X mode can be turned on and turned off. And if you do have one of the new wilderness versions that is a Crosstrek, a Forester, or an Outback, you should check your owner's manual because you have new X mode features that allow you to go faster. But there's no extra mechanical parts that are being used with X mode. All we're doing is just changing the software. And in order for X mode to work, you need to have an operating computer network, your CAN bus, because X mode is a collaboration of your engine control module, your VDC module, your parking brake, everything. So there is no X mode control module. That's what I'm trying to point out at. And we talked about that last week. There is no X mode control module. It's software. So when you hit the button, all you're doing is just changing the software on your vehicle temporarily. And if one of the other modules that has to work in collaboration with the X mode software, if it doesn't work, then your X mode isn't going to work. It'll just shut itself down. Troubleshooting. This is just kind of my six-step approach. I, you know, I've seen bigger lists, but this is the simplest way to kind of just put it down on paper. I wanted to try and get it in 5 steps, but it turned out to be six. Guys, gals, first thing that you need to do every single time. Oh, wait a sec. Why didn't somebody tell me what time it was? It's 9:05, guys. Let's take a break and let's do our tools. How about that? All right. I've been letting you guys chit chat, so see if we got any questions here in chat that I can answer. Get back all that microphone business. Yep, back to the beginning. Thanks for hitting the like button. Yeah, minimum 60,000 miles. That's perfect. And the more you drive your vehicle, like if you drive your vehicle more enthusiastically, or if you do any kind of pulling with a trailer, then you might want to think about reducing that. So the more load, the more work you put on your transmission, the more you need to change that CVT fluid. And the expense of it, I know, can be a little bit shock and awe. But if you plan for it ahead of time, if you can just 25 bucks a month, if you can put 25 bucks a month towards changing your CVT fluid, then you'll never have a problem changing it every 30,000 miles. I mean, shoot, you could do $15 a month and do it every 60,000 miles if you didn't pull anything. So, at the price that we're paying for cheeseburgers and cups of coffee, all you really have to do is just eat one less cheeseburger and drink one less cup of coffee. And you do that once a month for 12, 15 months, you paid for your fluid change. Yeah, best maintenance is the best. Preventative maintenance is the best maintenance. What's still better than STI? Yeah, summer temps are mean. A lot of overnight drop offs to cool. Yeah, anytime somebody comes in and they have cold start problems when it's here in San Antonio, Texas, man, it'll be like 110 degrees outside. I'm like, you drove your vehicle here and you have a problem as soon as you start up. I'm like, well, your car is going to stay here overnight because it's going to take all day to cool down. Yep, never drive aggressively when it's cold. No one's going to disagree with that. Okay, when I start my car cold, I'll drive it around and let it warm up before parking it. Very good. Yeah, and be aware that a lot of these vehicles, they don't have analog temperature gauges anymore. They just give you a little light bulb that turns on if your car is overheating, but it doesn't tell you that your car is at optimum temperature. That's kind of annoying. Okay, although we're getting close to normal operating temperatures, when the engine coolant temperature has risen, it is not at full operating temperature until the oil temperature has come up. Agreed. Yes, there are, depending on your vehicle, you have multiple temperatures of different components that have to come into play, and every manufacturer has different warm up strategies. Um, this is critical, especially if you have really thick oil in your engine. Your ECM definitely would pay attention to oil temperatures a lot more because the viscosity is definitely changing with temperature. That is another reason why a lot of manufacturers have switched to this zero weight engine oil, and everyone got freaked out because they were like, "Oh, there's no viscosity to it." Well, they threw it there so that way you could get everything lubricated on cold starts faster. And we really haven't seen any problems with it unless the customer decides that they want to start putting in a different weight of oil. There have been a couple of case studies that I was in. One of them was a WRX, and then one of them was a Challenger. Yeah, it was a Dodge, but it was both these vehicles were designed to run on zero W20. But every time this customer brought the vehicle to the shop for uh, power issues or they had check engine lights on for the sprockets, the the garages, they couldn't figure out why this car kept coming back because these cars would come in under warranty and they would do the repair, which was they'd be like, "Oh, like you have a sprocket that's lagging, or it says it's part of a strategy," and so immediately the technician would just go into, "If I see this code, I just put a sprocket in this car, And when it's repaired at the garage, what do you get? You get manufacturer oil, zero weight. You get 0W20. So then the car goes off. They don't see the customer for 3,000 miles, maybe 4,000 miles. And then all of a sudden the car comes back and it's got the same code and the same problems. And they're like scratching their head and they're like, man, okay, well, we did the sprocket. Maybe it's something else in the timing system. Maybe it's all the other sprockets. Maybe it's the chains. Come to find out is the reason why these intervals on these customer concerns were so far apart was because the customer was changing their own oil and they thought that the zero weight oil was garbage and they were putting in some other purple brand of oil or some European brand of oil that had a different weight to it. And I figured that out on our WRX one after I saw this car come back twice. Then they asked me to look into it and I saw the distance between each return visit, and I was like, "That's damn near an oil change interval. What's going on? Like, where are you getting your oil changed?" So I asked the customer, "Where do you get your oil changed?" Turns out he's like, "Oh, I do all my own oil changes, Joe. I don't trust you garages." Okay, what are you putting in your car? Only the best of the best. Can you give me some receipts? I need to know exactly what you put in this car. So finally, he shows me, and he's got this special AMS oil that he puts in there, and it has a completely different weight. And I told him, I says, that's your problem. You're reducing this problem by changing the weight because that warm up strategy, in order to move those sprockets and retard the timing and advance the timing, it was designed for a specific weight of oil. That ECM doesn't know that you have a different weight of oil in there. So it's getting pressure problems and it's saying that it's throwing codes for slow response on these sprockets. And I says, you've been the problem the entire time. And he didn't like that answer, but I don't have time to pet the rabbit, as they say, when there's a customer induced problem, especially when people have been doing warranty work for nothing. So that's my tangent there on changing the oil in your vehicle and going against uh, manufacturer recommended oil. So just be careful with that. On the 0W20 cars, we are monitoring oil pressure very, very close, and it changes everything at cold start. Um, any link for a thermal integer? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll find one for you. Uh, make sure I'll probably just make a separate short. That way we can stay on target here. But I'll make a short video for you guys next week, and I'll talk about thermal imagers, what I have, what are the advantages are. There's some really good ones out there for like 50, $60, and then you can get into some expensive ones really far down the road. But I'll explain to you what you're buying when you buy these things. And that way you can make the best call because they all give you the nice pretty picture. It's the expected results is what you just really need to know. Warming up, sitting there at idle isn't warming up. Yeah, you're exactly right. I've seen cars sit for 20, 30 minutes and they're nowhere near warm. You got to go drive them and do not sit there and just snap throttle rev these things. It's not a good strategy. It's a good idea, Baja, but there will be just one winter. So the link won't hurt to know that you use and proven. Did I read that right? It's a good idea, Baja, but there will be just one winner. Oh, gotcha. Maybe there'll be two winners today. Idle over a few minutes is horrible on a vehicle, especially boxers. Yeah, yeah, just go drive them, man. Okay. We on the engine performance section in school right now. Cool. Well, technically it's spring break. Oh, okay. Yeah, when you're learning about engine performance, you're going to learn a lot how these ECMs and TCMs, they have a lot of strategy, and the car can be having some really weird ratings on the scan tool, but the software is controlling everything. Right. So is this Subaru specific or any other manufacturer using this? If we're talking about just what we're reviewing with the CVT, this is a Subaru CVT little class I put together. But as far as other strategies for warm up, I wouldn't know what those other manufacturers do, but I would presume that they have something very similar. All right, and you guys are talking to each other. There you go. You're in the drawing. Okay, so let's update our list. See who's here. I'm going to work my way backward through the chat and start adding names to it. If you don't see me, put your name, start talking in the chat so I know to add you because I do not have a list of names that are currently attending. All right. You have to actually just post something in the chat. So you can just say hi. So if I see green next to your name, you're going in here. Okay. Learning with one, you're in. John of some trades, add you in there. Quick wrench, got you added. Garage Monkey's already up there. Rick Wrench is up there. Mayhew's all right. You're new. Right there we go. So if you don't see your name, start start talking now. So let's go ahead and see what we want to do. What tool do we want to do? Share screen. And let's just do this entire window to make it easy. Stop bouncing around on there. Let's do a warm up prize first. Because I got a set of these suckers and I really like them. Some pocket pry bars. And we got two different designs. We got one with a quarter shank on there. I think they got a beefier one. Yeah, here we go. They got two different styles out there. One with a big shank and one with a tiny shank. So you get a 30-degree angle, and then you can also get the one with the aggressive angle on there. Super nice. And these are made in Michigan. Get some Michigan tools coming at you. See, and I like that they compare them to the other brands too. So there's the Snap-on version, there's the Mayhew version, and there's your Mac version. All lifetime warranty on this stuff, guys. So that'll be the first one that we're going to do. Let's do a warm up. That's great to hear. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching, and now thank you for tuning in more often. Haha. All right, here we go. Let's spin it. All right, Felicia Mayhew, you are getting the clip set. All right, let me put my email up here on the chat. Please send me an email. When I get your email, I will be sending your pocket screwdrivers or pocket pry bars. All right, so you still, let me just get, before we move on from that, if you could, please, Mayhew, give me a thumbs up in chat and let me know you're still here. I have just a little bit of awkward silence as there is a 60-second delay. So, bummer. All right. I guess we got to spin again, folks. All right. Again, if you don't see your name on the list, please start talking in chat so I can get your name on the list. We're going with everybody who's got green on their name that's talking in chat. If you're just listening in the background and you haven't been talking in chat, I can't see a list of people who are here. So that's why I just need you to give me a thumbs up. Uh, you gotta be, you gotta have green on your name. That means that you're a member. So we're gonna do two drawings right now. We're doing one right now, and then we'll do a second one for a bigger prize later on. So that gives you time to go back to the channel and hit the join button. It's just $1. Sergio, are you here? Sergio is one of my oldest. I think he's one of my OG followers. He is one of the first two people to become a member. Please tell me you're here. There he is. He's here. Booyah. Send me an email, all right? You are getting some Tecton 4-piece set. Pocket pry bar. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. You make my notes too, so I know who got what. Pocket pry bars, 4-piece. So as soon as I get your mailing address, those will be sent out to you straight from Tecton. You'll receive them within 3 to 5 days. All right, we'll do one more drawing today at the end of the class. And I didn't get much feedback on what you guys thought about those hammers, but I'd like to make a hammer, one of these big ass hammers, a grand prize for the month. What do you think? Yeah, more products. They make awesome hammers, guys, and they got some big beefy ones. If you didn't hear it in the beginning, 50 ounce hammer, 18-inch handle. I got one of these. It is the Thor of hammers. It is so clean to swing. That away, screen share. All right, so let's get back into it. All right, guys. So when it comes to doing diagnostics, I know that there are like all kinds of crazy steps I know you could follow. This here, this here is just what I kind of like for 6 steps. 5 steps would have made it sound cleaner, but I just couldn't get it down. First thing is whenever somebody comes in with a concern, or whenever you're trying to diagnose your own concern, if you're a DIYer, verify the problem. All right. So if your spouse tells you, "Hey, honey, the car is driving this way," and then you go out and you drive the car and it don't drive that way, well, you're not verifying anything, so you don't have anything to kind of start working towards a repair. You got that? And that is critical when you're doing this professionally for a living. That is the hardest thing for us technicians in garages when dealing with the work orders that we get is there's sometimes written really vague because either the advisor doesn't know how to ask the questions, or maybe the customer was in such a hurry to get out of there that they didn't stick around and give the details. So when you have a concern and you're going into a shop, you can actually get a lot more help and probably reduce your diagnostic costs if you just kind of start writing everything out. And you don't have to write a big story, just some little lines of make it quick facts. Hey, on this date and time, I experienced this loss of power while driving on the highway at 70 miles an hour. Hey, that's really good to know. It happened at 70 miles an hour. How long were you driving the car? You know, I've been driving for 20 minutes. So everything's warmed up. Cool. Were you driving anywhere else before then? Well, yeah, I made 5 other stops, so I've been driving my car a total of 2 hours. Oh, great. That's good stuff to know. All right, so now that you've verified your problem, maybe the car comes in with a check engine light, and that is really important too. If you're a service technician and your advisor writes on their work order, check engine light on, and that's all you have to work with, okay, we can do this. Um, but if you get in that vehicle and you don't see that check engine light on, that means that the computer ran a dry cycle test because the computers are always running tests on itself. Even if it sets a check engine light, it'll still run a monitor test. And if it says, "Hey, that check engine light I threw," well, guess what? Everything's working, bro. I'm going to turn that light off. That's why you need a scan tool that can look at historical codes. So if you get in the car and the advisor says check engine light on, you start writing in your diagnostics right here. You go, check engine light was not on when I got in the vehicle, but my scanner says there are historical check engine light codes. So you now need to go through the approach through your advisor, or if you don't have an advisor, you start telling your customer, I know you didn't have, I says, I know you said you had a check engine light on. I says, but when you brought it to me and I turned the car on, there's no check engine light on. And you have a couple of historical codes. I don't know which one was the current code at that time. So I'm going to work through the historical codes and I'm going to match whichever historical code I see to the symptom that you're describing. From there, you're going to isolate your problem. If it's a drivability concern, the best three things to break it down into is spark, fuel, and air. All right. Check those three systems. And I'm working on a drivability class where we can do some analytical thinking and we can see how spark, fuel, and air can cause some problems with your vehicle. If you end up having, uh, if you got, if you got codes for something like network problems, you might want to get somebody who knows how to troubleshoot networks. Do not try and bother troubleshooting that yourself. I will tell you that much. When I learned how to troubleshoot networks, my first car took 2 weeks to figure out because you got a lot of things you have to go down, and there are no flowcharts for troubleshooting network codes. It just says you should know better. That's pretty much what it says. Most shop manuals will say perform basic LAN CAN communication troubleshooting, which just interprets to you should know better, buddy. And basic LAN CAN means that we're going to most likely be hooking up an oscilloscope and we're going to be looking at network traffic and we're going to be looking for drop packets. And nowadays, you can't even plug in an OBD2 breakout box to look at a CAN network anymore because we have gateways. So you're going to have to remove a piece of panel and you're going to have to piggyback off of another module. So let's not get on a tangent. So we verified our problem. Customer came with a concern. We duplicated the concern. Great. Now we can move forward with determining related symptoms. All right. So you're on a system. We have a transmission trouble code here. All right. It says that we got a line pressure problem. Cool. What are the things that, what did we learn in the last two sessions that can affect line pressure? First off is fluid level. Okay. So CVT fluid, that's going to be number one. Could be an electrical problem. Maybe they ran the car over something and they broke a sensor. All right. Or maybe they got some rats that chewed the harness. Okay. We can go down a lot of hypotheticals. So the easiest thing to do is get this car on the lift, check that fluid level, and move on from there. If it's low, well, tell your customer, hey, you're low on fluid. And before we do any other diagnostics, I need to top off your fluid. How low is that fluid? I don't know. It doesn't have a dipstick. I just have to keep adding fluid until it's gone or until it's topped off. So I've had some customers come in 2, 3 quarts low. Where did they lose that fluid? I don't know. I ask them, I says, where else have you taken this vehicle before? Because there are a lot of garages that are draining these transmissions, accidentally trying to do engine oil changes, and they don't know how to fill them up correctly. So that's where I fixed a lot of our CVT problems is just by correcting fluid level. And can your CVT fluid be inspected every time you take it in for an oil change? Absolutely. Are they going to do that as a courtesy? No. No, they're not. Because shops have now created a standard operating procedure for their multi points. All right. Multi points are visual inspections. That is it. And they are quote unquote telling technicians now this is not a thing that's in my garage, that this is not just local to my garage. This is local to all franchises now. Firestone, Christian Brothers, Goodyear. They're telling their technicians no dipstick, no fluid level inspection. That's it. You just don't fill in that box, you scratch it off. If that differential doesn't have a dipstick, then you can't tell that customer if it's full or empty. If that transmission doesn't have a dipstick, you can't tell them if it's full or empty. Some of these engines now don't have dipsticks, okay? You either have to know how to get through the menu tree on the vehicle, like it's a BMW or a Jag. I know they don't have dipsticks now for engines. So you have to go through a menu tree to see what the oil level is, or you have to use a scan tool to figure it out. That's a disadvantage to the customer. But manufacturers took away these dipsticks because people who didn't know what they were doing were putting things in there that didn't need to go in there. Too many times in the 90s did we have transmissions filled up with engine oil. I don't know how that happened. So, yeah. Okay. So now we're going to isolate our problem. Folks, when you're this isn't a big troubleshooting class, but I'm just kind of going into what I'm talking about here. Isolating your problem. I always tell people create a half split method when you're trying to diagnose something. All right. You got your big picture, find something in the middle that you can find a known good for. And then you can be like, okay, so I started with something this big and I found something in the middle that has to work in between it. Hey, that something in the middle works. Cool. Now you can look at two smaller halves now and you keep half splitting it until you figure it out. And when you get stuck in a rut and you're trying to figure something out, my advice is stop focusing on what's broken. All right. Stop focusing on what not's working right. Start focusing on what is working. And I don't care if it has to be the wheels are on the car. That's something that's working. The wheels are on the car and they turn around. Cool, that works. And sometimes when I'm working on a drivability issue for a customer, that's how I figure these things out. I start just sounding off, well, what is working? And then when I figure out what is working, I do my little Sudoku troubleshooting. If you guys have ever seen that Sudoku stuff where you have to kind of guess what number goes in what block, well, that's a game of deductive reasoning. And try playing it one day. Just put it on easy mode. I know you may not like math and numbers, but it actually does help you get into the mindset of deductive reasoning. If I have this here and I have this here, well, then that means something here needs to be of this value. Ta da! Now you're troubleshooting. So if you can do easy level beginner Sudoku stuff, then you can troubleshoot, I say. All right, then you just move into identify the cause, and then we're going to do a repair, and then you're going to verify operation. You are not done with this troubleshooting until you verify your repair. So if you had a line pressure problem and you put a new control valve body in, well, you better go drive that car and you better verify all your every test that you did for troubleshooting, checking line pressure, checking resistance, do it all over again. All right? Because too many times do cars come in the shop and then they're sold a repair. And what does that technician do? He's like, okay, parts in, I park the car, go get the cash for the customer. And the customer goes down the road. And the next day, check engine light comes back on. Same problem. Why? Because you didn't verify your concern. A really good example of verifying your concern is if you decided to change an oxygen sensor, right? I don't care which one it is, the AFR, the rear O2, but basically you're changing that oxygen sensor because you said, "Hey, it's not reading right. It's got a bad value in it or maybe it's stuck on a value." So you put a new O2 sensor in. Don't clear your engine code yet. Go drive the vehicle. Yeah. You're going to go drive the vehicle with a new part and a check engine light on. You should see those fuel trim values change, right? Because you put a new part in. So your engine should start changing the trims. It may not clear the light after 30 keys. It'll probably take 30 key cycles to make that light go away. But you see the fuel trims changing to where you want them to go. So now you know, hey, my repair is good. But if you put an O2 sensor in there and you're still stuck in a rich condition, guess what? You didn't fix the car. And you can't know that if you clear the code, because when you clear codes, you reset all the learning values. So you're not going to be able to tell if your repair was good. So I've always emphasized to people, don't change, don't clear your codes until you do the repair. All right, this is kind of like an interview question. So they might sound silly, but I come across these people too often. All right. A lot of people don't know what their check engine light looks like. They just see a light on the dash. And too many times if I had people come into the garage and their tire light's on, but they think it's an engine light and they're panicking. So getting familiar with your lights on your vehicle is very important. And all that is in your owner's manual. There have been a couple of times when vehicles have come into the shop and they say a check engine light is on, and I don't find any historical codes on their computer. That makes me worried. So I've actually had to have customers, I say, can you point to the light that came on? They're like, well, it's the yellow one. There are a lot of yellow lights on your car. Can you point to it? And then they walk over and they point to it. And I go, that's a traction control light, not a check engine light. And they go, well, it was flashing. Were you driving in the rain? Well, yeah. Did you slam on your brakes? How did you know? Because your traction control came on. A lot of people don't know how their vehicle is supposed to operate until they're using it in a scenario where the safety systems kick in. Dealing with a concern that has an intermittent fault. These are the trickiest, and a lot of people get scared by them. And you can figure out an intermittent fault. Now, let me just say, a lot of garages, they're actually trained to tell people to go away and come back when the fault is constant or maybe the light stays on. And I get that. I really do. Because as soon as you take the keys from the customer and you say, yep, we'll look into it, that customer is now under the impression you're going to fix it. And the one thing a garage doesn't want to do is hand the keys back and say, you owe me $180. I didn't figure it out. Well, that's not fair. You didn't do anything. Why are you charging me something? Well, you brought it in for us to look at. We couldn't figure anything out, and you took up my stall time, so you owe me money. That's their perspective. All right. You asked them to look at something, but they couldn't figure it out. If if you're an advisor and you're watching this, learn to train your customers on how things are going to go. Do not promise them anything. If you have an intermittent issue, right? Coach them as soon as they check in. Say, hey, if you're have this if like your concern sounds like an intermittent issue. And if our technicians run their troubleshooting steps, which can take 30 minutes to 60 minutes, and they can't replicate the concern and they don't find anything, you're still on the hook for a diagnostics. Some customers might walk away. Some customers might stay and say, well, can you look at it? Okay. And those problems should be given to somebody who understands how to work with intermittent faults because there's a lot of intermittent faults that can be identified by a good visual inspection of the vehicle, by looking at freeze frame data of historical stuff, and also working in tandem with their advisor and doing a really, really good interview. So you have an intermittent fault and you don't have any codes to go off of. You don't have anything historical. Well, now's the time when the technician and that advisor needs to start sitting down and talking with the customer. And customer, if you've been in one of these situations, don't get too upset that they're asking you questions. You giving them information is just as good as them using a tool. All right. Their interview is a tool. You go to a doctor. What is the first thing the doctor does? All right. He doesn't look at you. That's the first thing he does because he has a receptionist that tells you to take a seat and they go, fill out all these forms here. And you got 10 pages of stuff. You got a little guy, he's got his hands out like this, and they're like, you have to circle where everything is at. That's sometimes what needs to be done. And these shop manuals, they do have specific questions that can help figure things out. And lo and behold, you start talking to your customer, you ask the who, what, when, where, why, how long they've been driving, what the temperature was, were they driving into the sun? All of a sudden, you find out, oh, this was actually just the car doing its job. You just didn't know that the car was going to make that noise. Great examples are if you have traction control on your vehicle with ABS and it's wet outside or there's icy outside and you slam on the brakes, you're going to feel the pulsation in the vehicle. And if you've never heard ABS make those horrible, scary grinding noises and vibrate the pedal and vibrate the car, it'll scare the piss out of you. It really will. And customers, they hardly ever experience that. Other things is like we have these ADAS systems on the car, the assisted driver systems. They turn themselves on and off all the time. Why are they turning themselves off? Well, because there's a temporary situation where they're not working correctly. The Subaru uses cameras right on the front of the vehicle, actual like cameras that are like on your phone. Okay. And if those cameras are if are facing towards the sun, think of them like human eyeballs. If you stare at the sun, you could see it for a couple of seconds, but eventually you're going to like lose vision. So your system will just say, I'm deactivated. Uh, rear radars, rear radars on vehicles, they'll also turn themselves off all the time. Had one guy, he couldn't figure it out and he was bugging the crap out of us. And it wasn't until I sat down and I did one of these intermittent interviews. Come to find out, whenever this system turns itself off was when he was going to the park with his kids. He had a bike rack carrier on there. And that bike rack carrier is all of 4 inches away from his bumper where the rear radars are at. So those radars were saying, hey, there's something in my blind spot and it won't go away no matter how this car accelerates, decelerates, and turns. So I'm just going to turn myself off. And you're not going to rely on me because I'm just going to tell you I'm not working right. That was a normal operating thing because it just kept detecting that something was there. So it said, I must not be working right. All right. So our pre-inspection, folks, a lot of problems can be solved by a good multi-point, a good visual inspection on your vehicle. You see a dusty engine bay and there's a bunch of little critter feet on there, and you might got rodents. Battery test. Use a real battery tester. If you haven't seen my videos on battery testers, bro, these little $50 little battery testers that look like your cell phones, they cannot load test batteries. You need at least a carbon pile load tester. And you need to make sure that that battery tester is actually rated to test that specific battery because now we have not only do we have flooded batteries, we have enhanced flooded batteries, we have AGMs, spiral glass, and a couple of different other ones. So you need to make sure that your battery tester knows what battery is in that vehicle. And the two battery testers that I love is the Midtronic testers, the GR8 or the DCA 8000. A lot of people think that they're only good for giving you warranty codes. No. These things are checking battery temperature as it performs a load test. They're checking to see if this battery warms up under load. They're going to do a charging test of the battery. They're going to see if this battery can take a top off charge and see if it can discharge. The whole thing can take up to 10 minutes. I've had some give me a passing condition as fast as 2 minutes, and some have said, "Hey, I need to think about this a little bit because I didn't get the fast result that I wanted. I now have to go through the slow test." And the slow test has taken like 20 minutes. I've heard horror stories of one of these testers taking 60 minutes, but better safe than sorry. And if the car's in for diagnostics, well, who cares? You got your hour. Just let the car chill. So, a battery that isn't working correctly can cause all kinds of problems. I kid you not. Just because the battery started your car does not mean that that battery can work as a capacitor while you're driving. Drivetrain problems, different tire sizes. This is an all-time all-wheel drive vehicle. These tires have to be within 30 seconds of each other. So if you got a car that comes in with a drivability concern and it has 3 ball tires and 1 brand new tire, sell that dude 3 tires before you do anything else. Don't even mess with it. If they got a drivability concern, they come in with a spare, tell them that they need to fix that spare problem first. Don't go any further. Just say, "Hey, this is the diagnostic process with Subarus. I'm not messing around with it. Take it or leave it." Fluid checks. Are your fluid levels correct? If you have the ability, previous repairs. Some shops keep records of all repairs done at their local establishment. If it's a franchise like Christian Brothers, Firestone, they don't talk to each other. They only keep records at their shop. So if you're like, I've been taking my car to Firestone my whole life. Okay, which one? Because it's not ours. You don't have anything here. So can you help us find out what you did? And then once you tell them what other Firestones you've been going to, they can call those shops up and they can say, "Can you send me these customer records? I need to know what was done." In a pinch, if that you can try and use a Carfax. A Carfax report will show where a car has been if that garage is registered with Carfax. Not all garages update their information to Carfax. But if I'm dealing with a diagnostic concern and I can't figure something out, I'll I'll immediately just go pull a Carfax and I'll see if this car was in an accident. I'll see if it's been to other shops for diagnostics and whatnot. especially if I suspect a transmission's been drained accidentally. I definitely will look at that and go, "Oh, they went to Walmart. I think they drained this transmission because I see some witness marks on that plug." A good scan tool that can do a good all scan. Scan everything, not just the engine. The customer comes in with a check engine light on. You don't know. So many modules can turn a check engine light on nowadays. So scan everything and save it. Okay. Look, see what's current, see what's historical. And if you got freeze frame data, analyze your freeze frame data. There's a lot of good information in freeze frame data, especially a PID for an ignition counter. All right. So if you got a car that comes in, it's got a lot of historical codes, but they got freeze frame on them, great. Go into the freeze frame, find out the ignition counter, look at the current ignition counter, and then move on from there and only work on the most recent code. Because there have been cars that come in and customers or the coworker of mine is saying, like, dude, I can't figure this car out. It's got 10 different historical codes in here. I'm gonna have to clear everything and send the customer away. No, 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 don't clear anything. It's like, because you're gonna ruin my evidence. And I show them, I says, look at all the freeze frame. Oh, okay, cool. We can eliminate these 9 historical codes because they're from 1,000 key cycles ago. Just focus on that one right now. Does your customer have good engine maintenance history? What does engine maintenance history have to do with transmissions? Folks, transmissions are just torque multipliers. That's it. If you boil it all down, it's a torque multiplier. So if your engine is the output and your transmission is the input for torque multiplication, then your output, your engine, if it's not running right, you're creating a garbage in, garbage out scenario. So if you got a garbage running engine, your transmission's going to multiply that garbage by 1,000%. Think about it that way. Too many times have people tried to diagnose drivability issues to the CVT side, only to find out this car has a misfire. And they didn't think about a misfire because they were going, well, there was no check engine light. You don't need a check engine light, okay, to set a misfire because you can just go to the PIDs and you can look at the roughness counts. And when it comes to drivability concerns, that is the one thing that I look at all the time is I'll always make sure that my engine is running correctly first. I will make sure I have no roughness counts. I'll look at my roughness monitors. Okay, it's good. I'll go drive the car and look at the roughness monitors and make sure I don't throw a roughness count. And then I'll look at my learned ignition timing and I'll make sure that my learned ignition timing isn't taking a dump while I'm driving the vehicle. Because, yeah, if you got a slow reacting sprocket, it's going to throw off your timing. All right. Ground cables, rodent damage, body shop work, and collisions damage. All this right here, you can find that on your Carfax. Okay. Rely on your Carfax if you can't figure it out really quick. And really quick for me is about 20 minutes. It takes only about 20 minutes for me to run my multi-point, to scan codes, and get a battery test. And if I don't have a direction from there, I immediately just go to Carfax and I get a Carfax. If you're a garage, you should have a Carfax report auto rolled into every diagnostic, whether you use it or not. It's $7 to get a Carfax nowadays. And I'll be damned. Hey, 2 weeks ago, this car had a busted windshield and somebody replaced the windshield. Well, how's that relevant, Joe? Well, let me look around the sides of where that windshield was pulled out. I'll be damned. That guy with his little sawzall actually went a little too far and he cut into one of my body wires. There you go. That's your problem. Or, hey, this car was rear ended. Well, all he did, Joe, was replace the bumper. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It got rear ended. Now I need to start looking at other things. Well, I'll be damned. There we go. I see some disturbed components. You got a bent bracket, or you got a bent trailing arm. Well, why did the body shop see that? Because the body shop does body work. dummy. You didn't complain about a drivability issue. They do body work, and you couldn't visually see it was bent until you went looking for it. So because that trailing arm pushed the tire out and screwed up the alignment, it made that wheel spin at a different speed, which then caused a drivability concern. So get your get your mind thinking. You find you see critter feet, you see nests, you know you're looking for busted wires. Uh, Let it be known that whenever there's collision work, body shops love painting over body grounds. Okay, they disconnect everything, they move the harness out of the way so they can do their paint. But what do? They spray over everything, then they hook that eyelet up back to the ground, and it's got paint in the way. It's not making a good metal to metal contact. So you might have to clean up some grounds. I see it all the time. So when we're looking at if we're suspecting anything, always check your powers and grounds. Make sure your powers and grounds are getting to your sensors, your computers, and you'll be on the go. Okay, we got a stall test that you could do. This is for a transmission diagnosis. If you got a customer says they got a lack of power problem, or maybe their car, uh, the engine turns off, and it's not a start stop. Okay, this is a non-start stop car. The customer concerned. This is a legit concern. Hey, every time I come to a stop, the car turns off, and I have to restart it, or the car stalls, or I hear it chug and then stall. All right, in this part, you would do a quick stall test. Okay, stall test is we got to have a hot transmission, 140 to 176 degrees. You're going to want to chalk these tires, set that parking brake, turn all your vehicle loads off, and you're going to mash that brake pedal. Hold it as hard as you can, put it in drive, and then go wide open throttle. You want to see what your RPMs are at. Now, don't stay at wide open throttle more than 5 seconds. Just read the highest number that you get. Now, these vehicles, these transmissions, these Subaru ones, 2,500 to 3,100. If you're trying to do a stall test with another vehicle and you don't have the numbers, then the best thing you can do is just record that number and then let your car cool down and park for 1 minute. Then do that same test with all the safety, foot mashing on the brake, wide open throttle, do it in reverse. If you get the same numbers, drive in reverse, you might be okay. But with the information that we have here for Subaru, this is what you want. So if you step on that accelerator pedal and you got skyrocketing RPMs, you got line pressure problems. All right. If you cannot hold a value, if it's just making noise and going all over the place, check your fluid level. You might be low on fluid. You might have too much fluid. You might have dirty fluid. You never know. But this is a good operational check. So here we just have some quick identifiers of what you should be looking at. Okay. If you got higher than normal values and drive in reverse, there they are. It's already telling you check the forward clutch assembly there. Okay. Look at your circuits, look at your pressures, make sure everything's good. It's always looking at line pressure. This is all out of service data. And this came out of the stall test section. Just because the fluid's dark doesn't mean it's bad. That is what the takeaway from here. Doesn't mean it's bad. Now, if it smells burnt, then it is burnt. That part I will tell you. But if you've ever smelled CVT fluid, it has its own little special smell. And if it still smells the same as new fluid, then you're okay. But if it smells burnt, change it out. And something may not be bad in the transmission if you have burnt smelled fluid. It could just be fluid that's shot. And could you walk away with a win by changing fluid and the customer not coming back? Yeah, possibly. You might have caught it early enough. But usually, once the fluid's smoked, it might be too late. So it's kind of a 50-50, guys. And that's why I emphasize preventative maintenance is the best maintenance for this fluid. Just start budgeting to change it out every 5 years, 60,000 miles at a minimum. If you're doing a lot of work on your transmission, I mean, if your transmission's doing a lot of work, like you pull things with it, you got a full boatload of people in your car. Okay. If there's a lot of weight on your vehicle, a lot of the times because you work out of your vehicle or you just have that many people who ride in your car constantly, then you might want to get your interval changed out to 3 years, 30,000 miles. And as I said earlier when we started this, if you just budget for it, you'll never have a problem with it. What's 15 bucks a month? 15 bucks a month, you do that for 2 years, you'll always have money to change out this fluid. And that's paying somebody to do it too. You don't have I'm beating a dead horse. All right. If you have to check the if you want to check this with a mechanical gauge, you you can get to the line pressure plug. And there's a pretty outline of where it's at. This is on the passenger side because we can see right here, this is our differential fill. So that plug right there, that's going to be for our secondary pressure, for our line pressure. How do you do this test? Well, you do another stall test. And here's the line pressure readings that we're looking for right there, 5 to 6 megapascals. And damn, that's putting out some PSI. All right. So that's why I said you want to make sure that you have a gauge that can go up to 1,000 PSI, or you're going to have to get a megapascal gauge. Okay, your transfer clutch, that's your center differential. We are in the tail housing now. So as I have my arrow pointing right here, this is your fill plug. So this top check valve right here, that's where you're going to be looking for your all-wheel drive circuit test if you want to hook up a mechanical gauge. Could you do this test on a lift? No. No, you cannot lift this vehicle and expect all four wheels to spin symmetrically, evenly, all at the same time. Why? Because you have open differentials on this vehicle, which means it's going to send power to the path of least resistance. You need to get this car in the parking lot and just drive in a straight line. All right. All right. Some other things here. We have a time lag test. There were times where we were having customers complaining that the car took too long to engage into a gear. There is a check for it, and you can fix this. You can fix this because it's software, folks. This shifter lever, it is it has a shifter cable that mechanically actuates the mechanism to tell the transmission to change gears from park to reverse to neutral and drive. All right. But the software needs to initiate the line pressure change for the forward and reverse mechanism so fast. And sometimes it gets a little lazy. And you can get it to speed up by doing a sequence. So first we'll do the check, and it says that if it's within 1.2 seconds or less of it engaging into a gear, that's good. And it tells you that you have to wait 1 minute in between moving the function actuator. So moving this shifter handle from neutral to drive and neutral to reverse. You got to wait 1 minute in between. And the worst thing is you have to do this test 3 times to get an average. So you start neutral, you go to drive, you got your stopwatch. Okay. You take your time, you put it in neutral, you wait 1 minute. Then you do it in reverse. You take your stopwatch and you measure the time lag. You put it in neutral. And you wait another minute. You do that 3 times. So this test is going to take you about 12, 15 minutes to do correctly. Then you take the average of. If the if you're over a second and a half on these transitions for the average, you can fix it. Uh, there is it says do a transmission relearn. There's a bulletin for this. It says do a transmission relearn, and then it's going to tell you to do this same test again, where you have to move it from neutral to drive and neutral to reverse, and you got to do it 3 times. It tells you to do that, and the software kind of resets its mind. So you can fix this by relearning the software. Road testing, okay. You road test it with yourself. You don't determine that anything is wrong. You can't replicate the concern. There's going to be times when you're going to have to go on a road test with your customers. Uh, Folks, do not drive the car with the customer in it. You tell that customer to drive the car, and you take notes on the situation. You see their posture. You see how they drive. I got some people who drive with their left foot on the brake. Well, you got your left foot on the brake. Well, I'm not pressing on the brake. I know, but you see, you've moved it like 2 millimeters, and the brake light switch is kicked in. Your brake lights are on, and your car is eventually going to go into a powered down mode. Okay. It does that for safety because it thinks that you're trying to stop the car, but the car won't stop. So the engine's designed to just go into a low power condition so you can pull over to the side of the road. People don't know that. Maybe this person just doesn't know how to drive. It's happened before. Or they just have really bad driving habits. The they don't know how to use their foot and stabilize speed. So I'm in the car and I'm getting seasick because they're going up to 70 and then they coast. They go up to 70 and they coast. And I have to tell them, like, stop that. That's your problem. You're pissing this car off. The car doesn't know what it wants you to do. It's like you're just randomly accelerating 5, 7 miles an hour every 10 seconds. You're making the car angry. Stop it. Just hold your foot at a constant speed. And they go, oh, well, it's kind of hard in these shoes. Get different shoes and get out of my shop. So, yeah, take notes, talk to your customer, and schedule these drives. And be aware of the times that you're scheduling these drives with these customers. Know the rush hour around your shop. Okay. You don't want to go on a test drive with a customer during rush hour because they're distracted. They're talking to you. You're distracted because you're interviewing them. You might have to tell them, hey, I need you to come in at these times when the traffic is the best. So that way, like, we don't have an accident or however you want to phrase it. But I've had customers, they want to show up at and go on test drives at 7:30 in the morning. I'd be like, it's rush hour. I'm not going on a test drive with you during rush hour. Do you know how many crazy people are out right now? We got to wait at least an hour and a half. And then same thing, they want to show up at 5:30 in the afternoon. I'd be like, the shop's closing down. It's rush hour. I'm sorry. We need to schedule this another time. I know this is inconvenient for you, but if you want your car fixed, I need you to cooperate. All right. If you think you got an inhibitor switch problem, and this would be for cars not starting correctly, this could be cars slipping out of gear, or if you're just straight up getting a code for the inhibitor switch. Okay. This stick shift right here, it does have a little bit of shaft play on it. It's designed into it, but if it moves too much, you might have a problem mechanically with that entire mechanism. But as you can see right here, in neutral, it has about 1.5 degrees of wobble on it. And what you want to do is you actually want to use your scan tool and you want to look at the PIDs for the Prindle. That's PRND and low. Okay. We call it the Prindle. And while you're in neutral, just kind of moving it a little bit. Is it picking up drive and is it picking up reverse accidentally? And you can do the same thing in reverse. You can just kind of fudge the shifter around and you can see if it's picking up an extra gear accidentally. If that's the problem, there's an adjuster screw on the shift cable that you can identify, and it might just be out of position a little bit. If not, then here's the breakout of your circuit that I have here on the side. So you can take a screenshot of that. That's available in service data. You got to check your control valve body. On these Gen 1s, it's a massacre to check because you got to drop the pan on the vehicle. And when you drop the pan, you lose your fluid and you can't put old fluid back in. That's bad practice. Um, so what you can do is right here on top of the transmission, you can get access to the valve body through this plug. Now you're taking a gamble because you're going through your transmission harness to get these resistive checks here. But if they come out good, then they're good. Otherwise, you're stuck dropping the pan so you can get to the actual harness on the valve body. And I talk about that in my next slide right here. So I've already taken screenshots of the wiring diagram. So you can line up the corresponding pins right here. So I took this picture right here. Okay, this plug right here, that's for your Prindle. This plug right here, your control valve body. If you're looking at wiring diagrams and you see these letters here for B and T, well, B is for body, T is for transmission. So I know I'm looking at a transmission harness. So yeah, you can definitely figure out your ohms measurements for your solenoids right there. And at what temperature should you be checking this resistance value? Well, these were taken here at 70 degrees. Keep that in mind. So if the car's coming in hot off the highway and that fluid is 170 degrees, you're going to have to wait for this car to cool down in order to get good resistance readings. The relearn process, guys, the relearn's super easy. If you got a scan tool that can do a CVT relearn on these transmissions, they're going to walk you through on everything you need to do. Uh, it's pretty cut and dry. These are screenshots of the actual dealer tool here, but you'll go into the transmission and then you go into learning. Oh, I think I got it backwards. It should have been work support. Then, oh, wait, hang on. I see what I did here. I clear out the learning value first. Then you go into work support and then you go into learning mode. Now, if you're using an aftermarket scan tool like an Altel, a TopDon, there might be a translation problem with the Chinese. So just go with the flow. If it sounds like if it just says transmission relearn, then it's transmission relearn. But it's basically just going to walk you through steps of where it says make sure all four wheels are off the ground, make sure the car is leveled. So if you're using a two-post lift, lift the car up and put it on the locks. It'll tell you to warm the temperature up to so much. So if you go over that temperature, it'll tell you got to let it cool down. Then it's going to tell you to put your foot on the brake, put the parking brake on, put it in drive, and bada bing, bada boom, you're done. The whole test takes about 10 minutes to do, and you've relearned the transmission. It's great to do. You have to do a relearn whenever you do any work to a transmission. That's the torque converter, an overhaul, a valve body. I even do it with fluid change. That's just a generic picture that I found of a broken chain. Now, your drivability concern problems is definitely going to vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. So, when dealing with a super specific drivability concern, it's best to use the service data, and they actually do have a page called Diagnostics with Phenomenon. which means that you're diagnosing something that doesn't have a code problem or doesn't have something that is a constant problem. And those phenomenons, they have hypothetical scenarios that you can interview the customer with, and you can try and pinpoint exactly what might be going on. And then they'll give you features of the vehicle that you can start looking at and diagnosing and performing bench tests on. So we're going to review just powers and grounds by looking at our TCM. So we're looking at a TCM for a 2010 to 2000 Legacy Outback here. All this is available here on service information, and we're just going to do the power and ground callouts because if you're suspecting a module, the first thing you want to do is you want to look at your power and ground, 100%. And where's our power coming into our TCM? Well, right up here. Our automotive electrical wiring diagrams, they like to run power from the top and then they like to run ground from the bottom. So if you're ever looking for power sources, they'll always be listed at the top. I'm glad that that has been a constant for all our electrical diagrams. Here we have an FB fuse. FB is in the cabin, fuse number 12. It's hooked up to the ignition system. So that means that we're going to see power here on this pin of the TCM when we put the key in the on position. Over here, we have an MB fuse, main body fuse panel. These suckers are hot at all times. So that means that regardless of what key position you're in, you're going to have power here on this pin of the TCM. So now you know, all right, I got power here with key on, I got power here at all times. What's going over here? This is our self shut relay. That self shut relay, this is what provides power to all your solenoids. I'm sorry, this provides power to your sensors on your transmission. So when you go key on, this lead right here, this turns into a ground, so that way power can flow through this coil on this relay, and now we have power flowing through here, and it goes out to this C connector, and then these pins right here on the transmission, they all get power. Knowing where your grounds are at is also very important. Be aware that a lot of manufacturers actually have wiring diagrams specifically for their grounds now. So back here on the TCM, all we were seeing was just power. We didn't see any ground. That's because there's an entirely different ground circuit. And grounds are generally linked up together, and a lot of things share ground. So what I'm putting out here is that this ground right here, this is actually identified as ground 13. And here, it's all spliced together. It's sharing its ground with all these sensor components, even hooked up to our inhibitor switch. And then there's the ground right there. It goes on the firewall of the vehicle. That ground cable gets dorked up a lot because technicians have a habit of using their zippy guns on everything. So they move that, they unbolt that cable and then they bolt it back down. But no, that's only supposed to be like 10 foot-pounds. But their zippy gun, they just want to hear that sound, and they will spin that eyelet until that wire rips. And now you have an open ground condition. Or maybe it's intermittent because it just rips some wire strands out. So that's why it's important. Check all your grounds. Okay. Loss of so with going to our powers here, just reviewing again, we got our self shut relay. You can see that we are providing power. We have power here right after. Yeah. So the power was allowed to come through our self-shut relay to energize our transmission sensors. We're coming up through here, running down this line, and what do we got? We got a fuse, and that fuse is going to another sensor. And what sensor is that? Primary speed sensor. So the primary speed sensor is fused. A little 7.5 ampere, and that thing's hidden up in the dash. Well, how many other sensors are run through that power? Over here to letter H, we got a lot. Another speed sensor is using it. The front speed sensor is using it. So if you got power issues to your sensors, note that there's a hidden fuse in the harness. Okay, prior to testing a transmission or any system, okay, always review your system's inputs and outputs. Inputs and outputs can be hardwired or they can be bust over the communication. I talked about that in those block diagrams. Okay, that block diagram is also a really good reference to have. It's available in the service data. So here's just all that just kind of rewritten for you. So here's your hardwired inputs and here's your hardwire outputs. So I got that there so you can take a screenshot and you can have that for reference. Okay. Those are your bus connections, inputs and outputs. So you can get a screenshot. This is really, really good to have. You can utilize this for all the Subaru CVTs. And be aware, though, that I put everything on here for all Subaru CVTs. So if you're working on an older one, you can see right here, electric oil pump. Yeah. If you don't see it on the transmission, then you don't got it. So I just put it all up there so you have this as a quick review. So take a screenshot and then you can use that when you're looking at stuff. Hey, we already talked about the control valve body. I think, yeah, I need to delete those two slides. Okay, strategies. Yeah, we talked about how cold and hot can make a difference here. So here, if your outside temp is below freezing, the CVT will stay in a low gear range until it gets to 95 degrees, right? It's going to let that chain do all the work to create the friction and warm everything up. Your torque converter is going to engage differently, and then you're also going to have delayed engagements and drive, reverse, and neutral because your fluid is cold, and when your fluid's cold, then you have uh, your line pressures don't engage correctly. The hot strategies are interesting. So if your fluid goes over 239 degrees, then your car is going to be stuck in overdrive, and it sticks at overdrive because it puts less load on anything. Your fluid temp sensor is located in the valve body assembly itself. Other things to keep into amount, other things you need to be aware of too when you're dealing with overheating transmissions is again, here's that small thermostat that I showed you in the cooling system. Make sure that sucker is functioning correctly. Maybe it's stuck open, maybe it's not even there because maybe you got an overheating engine. So you're sending overheating engine coolant through that pancake warmer and it's just cooking your transmission fluid. I've seen it happen. I got a picture here. This is a picture of a coolant temp sensor off the engine. If you're suspecting that you got a faulty engine coolant temp sensor circuit or just a sensor, there's a wonderful little half split technique that you can utilize and basically have the key in the engine uh, have the key in the on position with the engine off, unplug the sensor, and if the value goes low, like neg 40, and then you want to take that's a good thing. If it goes neg 40, that's a good thing. Then take a paper clip on the harness side and short it. And if it goes all the way up to 240, all right, that means that that ECM is working. It means that the harness is good, and you might potentially just have a failing temp sensor. So I just verified the the ECM knows that there's an open condition, and the ECM knows when there's a short condition. I did that all without a voltmeter. I did it with a paper clip. I understand that not all engine temp sensors are easy to get to, so you might have to read the wiring harness and um, maybe get access somewhere else. So we got fail-safe strategies. Fail-safe controls ensures minimum damage is done. So you're going to get lack of speed, and you might just have general problems with some harsh engagement. And that's just because it's going to lock down the line pressure to the highest value. When you're trying to read service data, and this part is not mentioned, this actually came from a different avenue of our tech training. But there are two different types of these solenoids. They group them into group one and group two. And here's a list that you can screenshot, and we'll talk about group one and group two. So, group one is the difference when we're talking about the groups, it's how the flow is identified when power is not applied to the solenoid. So, some solenoids, uh, pressure or CVT fluid is allowed to go through when they're in a power off condition. Some, they inhibit the flow. So, transmission solenoids are divided into two groups. Group one solenoids are normally vented, okay, open. That is, they vent fluid to the sump when they are electrically off. So, group one, they're venting when they have no power. Group two solenoids are normally applied, not vented, when there is no power. Why they like this? Well, that's in the event that the transmission experiences a power off condition for those circuits. They can fail into a specific category, so that way you can still limp the transmission in. They're just hydraulically locking the transmission into one function in case it loses power to those solenoids. Oh, I can get rid of that. How nice. All right, so we're just going to kind of go through some generic terms here with all the codes, and you can screenshot this as you go along. Lockup duty solenoid, adjusted torque converter, lockup pressure. If you have these codes, you got a lockup duty solenoid problem. Okay. If the lockup duty solenoid malfunctions, the ATF temperature warning light will blink and the power to the duty solenoid will be shut off so that the lockup clutch will release. Failsafe control ensures a minimum level of drivability in the event of the malfunction in a speed sensor. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Already talked about that. Okay, primary up, primary down solenoid performs the upshift ratio control and downshift ratio control. If the primary up ratio and the down duty ratio solenoid malfunction, the ATF light will blink. Duh. That's going to blink a lot. Ratio control will not engage full low or overdrive. So you're going to be stuck in this happy medium. Solenoid group one, all wheel drive solenoid. Okay, this adjusts the transfer clutch pressure. If the all wheel drive duty solenoid malfunction, guess what? The ATF light flash will come on, and the all wheel drive duty and the all wheel light might flash too. If there's a malfunction, it's just going to shut off, and you will have front wheel drive. Okay, group two, when they're not energized, they allow flow to go to the sump. There we go. So here we are. Normally applied, not energized. Fluid comes in, goes to the sump. When they're energized, there we go. Ta-da. All right. Forward reverse clutch linear solenoid. If it fails, the ATF light blinks and you're going to be able to put it in drive in reverse, but it's going to slam gears. It's going to feel like it's slamming gears because it has full line pressure. Same thing. And I'm just keeping these here so you guys have all this reference and you can take screenshots for insurance. Oh, Fluffy want to know who got the giveaway. Is Sergio. And we're going to do one more fluff. Stick around. Okay, if the primary speed sensor malfunctions, ATF light will blink. Yep. And when in park range and neutral range, the TCM will calculate primary speed from the secondary speed sensor. So if you lose your primary, it can use the secondary as a backup and you can limp it in. Hey, if you lose your secondary speed sensor, what does it do? Well, the ATF light blinks and the secondary pulley speed will be calculated from the vehicle speed. So there's software strategies if you lose a sensor, you're starting to see how we have all these backup strategies. So it knows how to yin and yang, so you can still turn the car on, move it around, get it on a tow truck, and get it into the shop. Okay, line pressure, secondary. I think we're getting close to being done, guys. Yeah, I kind of already covered a lot of this stuff when I was just chit chatting with y'all. So these are more things to screenshot if you're doing diagnostics on CVTs. This is called diagnostics with phenomenon list. So we have our symptom conditions here. Our engine stalls when in drive and reverse. And then here's your potential faults. And then you'll run these system checks to go along with it. A lot of the problems that are on the transmissions, it's gonna be a control valve body. A lot of the TCM conditions are fixed with software updates, but it's very rare that a TCM actually has to be replaced. The majority of the time, it's fixed with a software update. Eh, we already talked about doing diagnostics with phenomena. I got ahead of my charts. You'll do your all scan, you get your Carfax, you check your fluid levels, you check your powers and ground on your TCM. You're going to do a stall test. You're going to go for a test drive. You're going to look at your gear ratio. We talked about the gear ratio on how it'll change with your vehicle speed. You're just kind of looking for a linear motion on it. You don't want to see any major dropouts. And lastly, you want to look at your tires. You want to make sure that your tires are the same circumference all the way around, right? Too many times cars come in and you got three ball tires and one good tire. That's going to screw everything up. And it's going to cause a drivability concern. Okay. DTCs are not part numbers, guys. If you got DTCs with freeze frame, read it, go over it, and analyze it. There's a lot of valuable information in freeze frame. We already talked about using freeze frame to find your ignition counters and match it up to the existing ignition counter. Yeah, and we're back at this. Duplicate slides. All right, service bulletins. Take a screenshot of this. This is what you want here if you're working. I have a list right now. There's all your related CVT bulletins. Pretty cool. And I want you to know something really, really, and I want you to notice something here. If you're trying to find a bulletin for a car, all right, this is a Subaru thing. You're working on a Subaru and you're like, okay, let me see if there's a bulletin for this concern. And then you pull up the bulletins for that vehicle and there's like 150 of them. Dang it. Well, a lot of times these bulletin titles, they don't actually relate to the customer concern all the time. They're arbitrarily named. It's stupid. But what you can do is if you have a way of filtering your TSB results like I do, type in 16 dash. You'll notice that every TSB for a CVT concern starts in 16. It's a 16 dash. All right. If not, then you're going to have to do the control F and type in 16 dash. And then you'll start populating all this stuff right here. If not, take a screenshot and then you'll have all your bulletins right there. We do have a bulletin for chain slip, and that goes over the the test drive sequence that you need to do to determine if you have a slipping CVT chain. All right? Because just because you have a lack of power does not mean that you have chain slip. You can have a lack of power for a lot of other things. I had a car that came in for a lack of power under heavy acceleration. They had a clogged engine air filter. I had another one that kicked my butt and the engine was retarding timing a lot. All right. And why was it doing that? Because it had a broken engine knock sensor. So the engine, as I said before, you need to make sure your engine works good before your transmission could be diagnosed for doing a good or a bad job. So because that knock sensor was malfunctioning, the ECM thought that there was detonation, there was pre-det in the cylinders, so it was pulling back timing to as a strategy to keep the engine from blowing up. Okay, the Ascents and the Outback turbos, guys, they're getting center clutch pack problems. There's a bulletin for it on what to check for and get the updated part number for the new assembly. I do recommend just getting an entire new assembly instead of rebuilding the clutch packs, as if you have an assembly with failing clutch packs, the clutch packs wear out the housing that they go into, and new clutch packs will not work as good. That car will come back. So now we just throw the entire thing at it. Comes pre-built, it's pretty nice. All right, and last but not least, if you purchase your Subaru subscription, which was mentioned in the first class, you can buy a 3-day pass, a 30-day pass, and a 1-year pass. You will get access to the Tech Tips locator. You get the same information that we do. This is very, very valuable. And note right here, this is what it's called. It's called SUTTIPSLOC. That is the title of this document. It is under TSBs for all vehicles. You bring that up, and this is a table of contents for every TSB. It's an interactive PDF. It's about 90 pages. It goes all the way back to, I'm sorry, guys. Oh, shoot. I screwed that whole slide up. All right. Forget everything I said for the last 2 minutes. When you have a SubaruNet login, when you purchase a subscription, you're going to get access to the Tech Tips newsletter and the Tech Tip newsletter. Blah blah blah. These newsletters are written for us as technicians, and there's a lot of good information that doesn't make it to bulletins. A lot of gee whiz information, fixes, additional repair sequences that you can do. There's one thing called a torque converter relearn. That's not in manufacturer information at all. It's not in our schoolhouse books, but it's in one of these tech tips newsletters. So if you want to find this information without having to scroll through the hundreds of monthly newsletters, you go to the newsletter section under your STIS login that you purchase. And this is the name of the newsletter right here, SUTTIPSLOC. It's going to give you this document, which then you can pull up all engine related tech tips by the month. It's an interactive document. And if you're a technician watching, you need to have this starting your favorites. One of the things they mentioned in here in the newsletters is people were boogering up this connection when doing valve bodies. They weren't changing out the seals, and now the car doesn't move. And they thought the whole transmission was busted. Nope, you just did the job wrong. Here's another one. This didn't make a TSP. Okay, this is not a TSP, but this was mentioned in the newsletter. Okay, you put these Ascent transmissions and these Outback XT transmissions. When shifting into forward and reverse, sometimes they make a really hard squeak sound. All right. And people think their transmission's broken. They're just hearing line pressure in the forward and reverse clutch assembly. That's it. Here it is. That's the noise that they're hearing. So they get scared over that. Vehicle does not move in gear. Okay. The blue line is our turbine revolutions. The orange is our primary pulley, and the green is our secondary pulley. Our TCM sets the trouble code immediately if there is no input signal received from the secondary pulley speed sensor. The primary blah 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 blah. So what's happening here? So this one was we had low CVT fluid. We had a vibration problem here, and it was caused because somebody pulled the engine out for some work, but they broke the snout on the torque converter right there, and that was causing vibrations. You break that snout that goes into that pilot hole, you need a whole new torque converter. How does that happen? Well, it's because they separated their transmission face from their engine face. So their engine was coming out like this when it should have been released completely. Just bad practice. Not having your angles right when you pull things apart. Okay. If you got a customer who says, "Hey, I turn and the car feels like it's getting kicked in the butt," it's most likely your center clutch packs are going out. And the best way to troubleshoot this is take it into a parking lot, go do some figure eights. If you do figure eights and that's making that bucking feeling, most likely this clutch pack assembly is dead. And as I said before, we just change out the whole thing. But more GWiz information here from the newsletters. Uh, if you see oil seeping out of there, they tell you to just clean it off because it's most likely just from assembly and they didn't wipe it off. And folks, that is it. We're done. Let's go ahead and do the roundup and see who's still here. And we'll do one more giveaway. How about that? So I do want to thank all of you for making it through this massacre. Um, Sorry if I stuttered over a few things. This was the first time I've given this presentation, so you were all helping out a lot with me straightening this out. Yeah, that was a lot, dude. That really was a lot. And if you guys asked a question somewhere in there, I think I wasn't able to see my chat too well. So just throw your question up again and I'll find it. Okay, let's go to share screen. Right. Let's see, make sure we got everyone up there that's still here. Got Canadian Diesel, Jack, Jonathan Trades. I know you're already in there. Quick Wrench is in there. Fluffy, you're here, right? Yep, you're on the list. If you don't see your name on the list and you just became a member, let me know. Say hi in the chat. But right now, everybody in chat that's got green on their name is going into the listings. If you are a member and you haven't been chatting, you need to say hi in the chat so I know that you're here so I can add you to the list, as the streaming software does not list out who's actually just watching. Supra is not a member. All right. Got to refresh that list. All right. Let's find something that you guys want. So there's everybody on there. Sergio won the picks, or he won the 4-piece pocket pry bar set. Share screen, and let's do my entire window there. I want to save this bad boy when we get at least 50 members, you know? Let's get 50 members and I'll raffle this thing off right there. Let's go find something. That looks nice. What we got? We got a bit set here. 37-piece bit set. What's the difference between these two? Oh, this has different bits and pieces. This is a security bit set and this is a regular driver set. All right. All right. I think everybody's got pliers. Not going to mess with that too much. Oh, I do want to do a beam wrench one pretty soon. I like those beam wrenches. Yeah, will you get you a set of picks here? That'll be fair. These are good pick sets. They are made in Michigan. I love them. The handles, they don't get slippery when they get wet. And these are super sharp picks too. I've stabbed myself so many times with them. All right, last chance. If you don't see your name on the list, say hi in the chat and I will add you. Let the chat update. It takes about 10 seconds. All right, here we go. And Sergio, you can't win again. Fluffy. Wins the pick set. Fluffy. Fluffy Mex Mechanic. Ah. All right, everybody, you get another chance. Here we go. Not Fluffy. He's not here. We're taking his name out. He's obviously not here. The game wants him to win. Man, all right. Felicia, are you here? Because you weren't here the last time you won. Is she here? Did she pop back in? I think she didn't come back last time. All right. Here we go. John of Some. Please email me and I will make sure that this gets sent out to you. You get the pick set. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very sorry for that. Yes. Members is $1 a month, and that gets you into the weekly tool drillings that we're going to do. And the more members that we get, the bigger the value tools that we're going to be giving away. And I hope to eventually to be working up to. I got jump boxes. We got snap-on lights. These are neck lights. I have full voltmeter kits here with test leads. But I'm using all the revenue that comes through paid membership. That is your entry into our tools. That is the way that I'm going to work it. So for $1 a month, you get a chance at winning one prize once a week, and then we're going to do grand prizes. And if it gets out of control, then we'll start do quarterly grand prize, and we'll do a big annual grand prize. I'd really like to get it to that level to where, like we can do these small little $25 a week prizes once a week. Then we can do like $100 prizes once a month, and then we can get up into like the $200-300 ranges and the quarterly giveaways. And then at the end of the year, hey, how about $1,000 scan tool, right? But if you guys haven't explored my website, or if you haven't explored Tecton Tools, I do invite you to go out to their website. They're very honest. They have measurements on everything of how big and small everything is. They're very open about where their stuff is made. So right here, they're bragging about their stuff being made in the United States, but not everything is in the United States. So let's go over here to ratcheting wrenches. So there's all your specs right there. Taiwan. They're honest folks. They started out as a Taiwanese company, but they're bringing everything back to the states piece by piece. So they're getting factory space right now. So right now their factory, these screwdrivers, all screwdrivers are in China. I'm sorry, all screwdrivers are in their Michigan plant in the United States. Um, I know their ratchets. They're trying to bring back the ratchets right now. They just got their wrenches. Some of their wrenches just came into the United States now, so they're making their wrenches. And I really like that you can just buy one wrench. You don't have to buy a whole wrench set. So if you want to buy one wrench and then you want to booger it up and make a special tool, there you go. But check out this. This is the other thing that a lot of people don't know. Let me take that banner down. Here's something a lot of people don't know about their wrenches here. You can get them in any handle that you want. You want hard grip, soft grip, and then on the ratcheting mechanism, you can get a quick button release or no button release. And you can get that in any other sizes. They also always run deals where if you if you buy 3 ratchets, every ratchet after that is like $4 off. So you can really build a nice set. And I have almost one of every one of these, and I love them to pieces. They're really good stuff. Thank you for coming a member today. All right, guys, that is it. It's 11 o'clock. I kept you an hour extra longer than I needed to. It was only supposed to be a couple, but man, we just got away. Ah, $1 a month to win a prize or $1 a month to feed a child. Hey, I thought those commercials said $1 a day. Yeah, small body wrenches are good, and they now have a 9 1/4 drive, so we can make a super spark plug ratchet. Yeah, yeah, and I am talking to them to come out with a long reach 1/4 inch ratchet. So um, they're just trying to stay within the realm of these prices right now. So they say if they can't make it for that price, then uh, they don't sell it. But I asked them to take this 6-inch ratchet here and put a 10-inch long handle on it. And while you could buy 2 ratchets and kind of combine them together, they won't warranty it. But right now, all their ratchets are in Taiwan. They're supposed to be coming to the States very, very soon. From what I understand is they're gonna get the ratchets made here at their Michigan plant, but all the handles are still gonna be made in Taiwan. And then they're just gonna assemble everything there. And then once they get more factory space, they'll start opening it up. But right now, their factory is just concentrating on their box wrenches, their screwdrivers, their picks. So they're easing into it. I've had really good luck with these people. So I'm exhausted. You guys got to be exhausted of hearing my face. I want to thank everyone who came in. I want to thank Fluffy for handing out 5 memberships today. Who also gave out memberships today? Garage Monkey Mechanics, thank you for supporting the channel and giving out memberships. Dang, okay, he gave out another 20. And then Fluffy came back with another 5. So everyone needs to should have got a free month membership in here. So next week, there's going to be a lot of people here that are going to be entered into the weekly drawing. So I'll see you all next Saturday, 8 o'clock. Have a wonderful night. Thank you again for being here and hanging out with me.